Hello and welcome to Powered by Intuition. If you are new here, this is a weekly podcast where I just intuit what's happening in the air, just what's happening right now. And then sharing on principles and building off of that onto things that you can take with you in your daily life. So whenever you're tuning in here, or wherever you're tuning in from, these things should still apply while you are listening to this in the distant future. As long as, humanity exists and you are human who is listening to this. So with that out of the way, welcome. It is quite an interesting episode today. There is a lot to cover on this subject, and it's a rabbit hole. This goes deep. And this is more about, hold on 1 minute. This guy is just not going to leave me alone. He needs to say hi. All right. So let me introduce our little special fuzzball guest. Hi, Simmy. Hi. This is the little guest, little temporary guest that appears every now and then. He was on last week, and he is our special little buddy for a little bit as I'm doing some pup sitting. So, all right. Okay. All right. I introduced you. This is my co-host for the day. Okay. We're going to say he's the co-host. But coming back into this. So when it comes to this subject matter, there is a lot to cover. Let me start with this. In my childhood, there was always this feeling in these strange occasional moments that I would just somehow transverse into a different reality, that I somehow would, I'm being attacked. Sorry, as I move stuff around and all that stuff. Oh my goodness. It is just chaos here right now. Okay. So, careful, buddy. You can't jump down like that. So let me pause real quick. I need to get this little guy out of here because he's a little much for me to handle right now. Hold on. I'll be right back. Come here, Simmy. Come on, buddy. You're a little excited right now. And I cannot have this at the moment. So, bye, boss. Bye. Chaos. Absolute utter chaos. That is kind of like the world we're living in. So when I'm jumping on here, I'm literally like back to back with things and trying to, make stuff happen. So I don't want to keep pushing the time because I want to get to bed on a good time, but I want to make this happen and I want to be consistent. So there is this little chaotic dance and juxtapose. It happens. It's making things work. It's getting things to happen. It's like you set your intention for something. And the reason why I'm talking about this and deviating from the subject matter right now is because this is something that it's like you will have obstacles in your life. You will have things that you have to deal with. You will have to set boundaries and parameters for what you can handle. And if you set a goal, make it happen. It doesn't matter what gets in your way. Make it happen, make it work, and move forward. So that is lesson. That is the immediate lesson to share right now. And so coming back to the subject matter on this whole shared or differentiated reality. So as a kid, I would have these moments where it felt like I was somehow slipping past the veil into like a way that I could be non-existent, that I couldn't be detected, that I could walk into a room and nobody would notice me, and I could slip by people and nobody would notice me, and I could even whisper in their ear and they still like I would be in a completely separate like plane of existence. And I don't know if you felt that way, where like you go into a room and it's like nobody notices you there. And there's even moments where, I said something and it just seemed like nobody heard me. And almost like, for a blip of a couple of seconds, like I was not in the same shared existence, although I could see them. I could almost like I wasn't even interacting at that point, besides, trying to say something or trying to, connect verbally. It almost seemed like a separate reality, like I wasn't there. I don't know, maybe it was a cruel childhood joke, but that wasn't true. So this happened again. Flash forward, 20, yeah, it was 2017. I'm working for this organization and I'm at a venue and it's like a darker space, kind of like dimly lit, mood lighting. And actually the only light in that space at that moment was like coming from the doorway, but there was other people in there and they saw me walk in, they acknowledged me. And then like they're standing over here and there's this couch right here. And I go to just lay down on the couch and I'm plugging in on my phone, just chilling. And I'm like doing this for just a few moments while they're, talking there. Like they saw me come in. They were there when I laid down. Like they acknowledged me. And I'm sitting here on my phone. There's obvious, like your phone is backlit. So there's light coming from the phone. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm just listening to the conversation, and then all of a sudden, like, I kind of like sit up and mention something in regards to their conversation, and they literally physically get startled. And they're like, wait, where did you come from? Where the heck? What? Like, they get scared, and I'm like, okay, that's weird. That's really weird. So that's kind of like the woo-woo end of the spectrum, where it feels like there's somehow these moments or these abilities where you can just kind of like slip out of people's consciousness almost in a way. But the subject that I want to cover today is a little more in depth on this situation. The subject that I want to cover today is more about simulated realities. These realities that are ultimately manufactured. So, another story. As of recent, like let's say this was like a couple months ago, I was talking to a friend on the phone and we were just chatting about, current day events and what's happening in these situations. And then I bring up, oh, yeah, there's this thing that's happened. And my friend was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, this whole situation happened. And they were taken aback because they had zero idea. None. No information. They're very current on what is happening in the world. They are a person who is like an ally in multiple different ways. And they had no idea. Now they are in a location that is more right-leaning on the spectrum. And I'm obviously in a location that's more left-leaning on the spectrum. But we do share information. We do stay neutral. We agree on a lot of things. And it was very fascinating, the news that I wasn't getting. And it was fascinating, the news that that person wasn't getting. And I came to realize, I was like, how could you not notice this major event? How could you not notice this major event? And that person was even questioning, like, how could they not notice this major event? And I was like, how did I not get this information over here? And it's like, at that moment, we're in separate realities. We're getting separate information that is completely contradictory or completely different currencies of information, and we are mutuals. We run in very similar circles, like, you know, childhood friends. Like, what? Of course, there's different demographics. So when it comes to these different demographics, I guess these different demographics are being fed different information, and information's being withheld from one and not from another. But this rabbit hole goes deeper into life experiences. When you don't have the life experience of someone else and you're not getting that information, you're not understanding totality. You're not understanding that this person is essentially lived in a different world from you. Like, for me personally, I grew up basically middle class. So growing up middle class, ooh, welcome. Yay. Thank you for joining, Ray. So essentially, growing up middle class, I didn't have the experience with a lot of my father's side of the family that was more like lower. I mean, they're still middle class-ish, like they had a house and everything, but it was still, in what was considered the ghetto. But it was such a different world from my day-to-day experience where I grew up. It was very, very juxtaposed. And so, like, I got these multitude of different experiences just from that paradigm. And then with the fact that I cross information with different entities and being mixed in general, like, I don't associate with one race. I don't associate with one aspect of my history. I like to be embracing and all encompassing of all of it. And so, like, my grandfather was a cop, so I have insight into that world, and I've had some training in that as well. So that's given me insight into a world that so many people are removed from, and actually try to keep at arm's length, and it's not helping anybody. It's not serving or supporting. It's not bridging these gaps. It's not helping for there to be less police done injuries to others. But it's also not helping people to understand that these officers need some mental health and more help than they are actually getting, because they're not getting any help like they postulate in amongst themselves, because it's like the entire world's against them. What else are you going to do? If you feel like the entire world is against you, you are now removed from everything else. You're now removed from another person's experience, and now you're going to be on edge. And when you're on edge, you're more likely to react in a very adverse way. Add on not getting the mental health resources that are necessary, or actually getting fired for going after mental health resources that are necessary. Yeah, that is a fine conundrum that is leading to just a perpetuation of harm all around. But it's like, that is another separate world, dealing with police officers and that sort of thing. And then you have the world of the LGBTQ that even sections off into its own little factions. And those are like their own little worlds of, someone who is gay might not have the experience of a trans person, even though it's put into this group. They are very different subsets of that group. So there are these different worlds that are around us that don't really interconnect or intermingle, but yet sometimes people get it in their minds that because my experience is like this, everyone has had the same opportunities, everyone's had the same access to information or information in general. Everyone is, had the same upbringing, everyone had the same start, everyone has this resource, but they don't really understand. So with that recent individual, that newscaster that said a very inflammatory statement, about, harming people that are experiencing homelessness, that comes from a space of not knowing what it's like, of not experiencing anything that has really had him struggle. And it's kind of weird to think like, oh, why are you giving this person empathy when he's not willing to give empathy? It's because he doesn't have that experience and he's not willing to have that experience. So should we let him off the hook? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Should we engage in this way? We should engage in dialogue that actually helps people to understand these situations. We should engage in positive communal efforts to be like, hey, well, why don't you come serve and support these people to actually get their stories? Because they're very willing to share their stories. So many people ignore them on the side of the street. No wonder why some of them have decided to, fling feces at people, because that is a way of getting attention. They are essentially cut off from the world, not because they want to be, but because something happened in their life that brought them to this space. And then, unfortunately, there is peer pressure, there is self-medicating, there are so many different things that can happen when being in that space. People turn to adverse ways of coping. And it's a trip when you start listening to the stories and you can sit there and go, wow, this could happen to anybody at any point in time. It can even happen to that newscaster where some sort of event happens, like what happened out here in Los Angeles in January. And he could be experiencing homelessness as well. But he doesn't understand that until those trials and tribulations actually knock at his door and he has that experience, but he still wouldn't connect it to others because obviously he doesn't seem like the person to do that. So our reality is cleaved off into these different worlds, into these different spaces, into these different microcosms of postulating. And if you're not a world walker, if you don't go through and try to connect with people and get that insight and information, and if you're sitting there trying to solve another's problems and you do not involve them or their experience, or you sit there and you discredit their experience and you're like, I know what you need, when you really don't, that is a disservice and that perpetuates harm. And then people get pissed off at you and then you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then that self-victimization comes in, but they don't even realize it, which is the crazy fact, because there are these divisions. Now I'm going to go into some deep material because there is a lot of information on this. This goes into behavior patterns. So there's an experiment. And let me see here. There's several experiments that have happened. One of it is called crowd psychology. Oh, actually, let me just list off all of these things that this similar ideology goes under. It's peer pressure. It's the bystander effect, where one may fail to act due to assuming others will step in or handle it. Or if you see others, like, let's say this is the experiment, you're a participant in the experiment, you don't know you're a participant in the experiment, but you have actors around you that are told to behave a certain way when something happens. So let's say you're in a room and there's like 5 other people sitting around you, and they're like, doing their thing on their cell phone, reading books or whatnot. All of a sudden you see like smoke pouring out from a door, and you like check it out, you feel heat and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a fire behind this door. Everyone else in the room is just like ignoring it. They're not in that they don't seem to be in that same reality that you're in, knowing that, hey, there's a fire behind this door. And you even say, hey, there's a fire behind this door. And they're like, okay, and just go on and do their thing. Most of the people in that experiment failed to uphold their standards of self-protection. they would bypass their own sense of needing to get out of there, of keeping themselves safe, because the group didn't act. They weren't reacting. So a lot of those people ended up just ignoring it as well, thinking it's fine. You know, like that little meme with the dog in the room, and he has the mug, and it's everything's on fire, and it's like, this is fine. It was like that. So there is that sort of situation that happens. And it is a human behavior set of, like, also herd mentality, right? So peer pressure, direct or indirect pressure to conform, even against your own personal judgment. So it's like, if you notice something's wrong and you go, hey, we should not be doing this, like holding someone accountable, and they're like, whatever, and everyone else is just like, we're going to let it pass, it affects people to not speak up. Or if you're punished for speaking up, right, it's going to make people not speak up. We've dealt with that experience recently in a mass scale, where there is now real world consequences for the company that took an action that they probably shouldn't have, but were probably coerced in. So in the risk and safety context, let's go through all these terms. So there's so many terms: herd behavior, groupthink, risk normalization, normalization of deviance, de-individualization. In crowds, people lose self-awareness and personal accountability, leading to risky actions. Pluralistic ignorance, diffusion of responsibility. Personal responsibility is weakened in a group, so safety concerns are ignored. It's the same thing as the bystander effect. Peer pressure. In the risk and safety context, risk homeostasis. Individuals adjust behavior to maintain a perceived level of risk. If others seem safe, they also take risks, or they also feel safe, even if it's not. Safety culture erosion. When collective standards drop, individuals stop prioritizing safety. Crowd psychology or mass behavior studies how individuals act differently in large groups, often ignoring personal safety, or even their own personal values, or values that they say they have, but because the group behavior is going counter to that, they will begin to fall in line. Now we're getting to the aspects that we really need to pay attention to, because these are things that are happening on a massive scale today in a variety of different ways. And I'm going to go into some fun details on this. One of them is called astroturfing. So you know what astroturf is? It's fake grass. And that fake grass looks so real, but it's not. Okay? It's not. So astroturfing is coordinated campaigns that create fake grassroots consensus to influence real people into ignoring doubts, into ignoring what they know to be true, into believing things that are false, because there are these narratives that are surrounding them. And this is what narcissists, or those with narcissistic tendencies, tend to do. They like poke at you in so many different ways to abandon your sense of what you know to be true, to abandon your sense of self-trust. That is the first thing they do, because that is how they can manipulate you. So if you're in a space, like, let's take the book 1984, right? 2 + 2 = 5. So if you hear that enough, if you are in a room full of people, if your parents start saying it, if your siblings start saying it, if everybody around you starts saying it, and they start broadcasting and beaming that all over the place, most people are likely to bypass the fact that they know 2 + 2 = 4. And that is essentially what astroturfing is. That is what was leveraged in that book. Let me see here. Hey, Ivan, great to see you. So social contagion, behaviors, attitude, or risk spread through a group like a psychological infection. So this is It's the same thing as a smile. If you see someone smiling, or if you're in a room and someone is just busting out laughing, you might start laughing too, right? That's social contagion, but that can be used in a negative way. So I put in the good ways, which is something that we can do to shift the world around us, is bring in some light, bring in that laughter, bring in that moment of happiness to kind of like shift the energy in a space. Smile at a random stranger, connect with people, make eye contact. These are things that are social contagions, but used in a positive way. The bandwagon effect, adopting beliefs or actions because many others are doing it. So this is the idea. If you're that old trope, if everybody's doing it, are you going to do it? Apparently, yes. Because the people who used to sprout that off literally fell for it. Conformity effect. So this is changing behavior to match the group, even if it's unsafe or wrong, even if it's counter to your religious beliefs. Obedience to authority. People follow orders or implied directions from authority figures, disregarding safety. Quote unquote, they're just doing their job. I was just doing my job. I'm going to do my job and not going to, help you out with anything. I only get paid to do this. Sorry. Things of that nature, right? Informational social influence, assuming the group knows better and overriding your own judgment. False consensus effect. And we are dealing with that hardcore right now, to where there is a sectioning of groups, but if you are not able to spot bias in any regard, if you do have a lot of innate bias, you're more likely to fall for this, because it is not a, one side versus the other thing. This is happening widespread amongst many groups. There is a fractioning of different worlds and different spaces. I say that again. It doesn't matter what side you are on. You are being impacted by the false consensus effect. I try my best to stay unbiased. And the way that I've countered a lot of this is by relying on my value system and running checks and balances by my values parameters that I have set up myself. And if I fail that, I acknowledge it and I reconnect with what my values are. And dealing with someone with narcissistic tendencies who, I was susceptible to what they did, but I also was able to figure my way out of it, reprogram my consciousness, and then learn to teach this to others. So having that value system as your compass is so important, because you get to adhere to these values hard and fast, and you do not blur the line on your values, because if you blur the line on your values, you have zero boundaries to stand on. Your boundaries are going to be pushed, and you are going to not have a good time because of that. That leads to you doing things you don't want to do, or that you will regret later on. You'll be pushed to violate yourself. Like, you ever have those moments where you regret not listening to that inner voice that's like, nah, you shouldn't do that. And maybe you didn't go underneath that inner voice to see what that's really connected to. But it's definitely a boundary of some sort where you're like, hey, maybe you shouldn't go hang out with that person that's, about to do some stuff that's not okay, right? And you do it and you're like, gosh darn it, that was such a waste of time and I didn't have fun and this was just ridiculous, and you just get home and you're like frustrated. Yeah, you violated your boundary, and it sucks and it's not fun. So when you have a value system, it doesn't matter who or what comes at you, you adhere to that hard and fast. It is something that you created with your parameters for you to uphold. You can't put it on someone else to uphold. That's not controlling what you can control. That is a fool's errand of trying to control things outside of you, which only leads to frustration when it doesn't work. I'm going to get to a little bit on that in a little bit, but let's continue with this list on this situation that has caused a rift between different groups of people and that I'm calling different worlds, essentially. So, echo chamber effect, repeated group reinforcement of an idea until dissent is suppressed. So, literally different words for exactly the same sort of thing that, we experience online. If you're not, I'm gonna bring this up and people are gonna be so blah about it, but like there's been one G side that seems to get all of the attention, meanwhile all the other ones are being ignored, right? Like this is kind of, I can imagine this is how people felt during the BLM stuff, even though it's kind of like a skewed feeling. It's like, well, I have these problems too, or, these people are dealing with this as well, but you were just highlighting, these people. I really, it's one of those dichotomies that's like, it's challenging, but that's me empathizing with the group, but yet there are horrific things happening to groups of people around the world for many different reasons. So, sorry, I lost people on that, but that's the thing. There are so many different things happening. It's like, this isn't the only one that's happening. It's not the only one that it's happening to. And so, like, I didn't bandwagon that, even though I know a lot of people were coerced into jumping on board. Part of this is I want real people's voices to be heard, those who are actually in it. There was a lot of anti-Black sentiment, which it's like, I'm going to be like, well, if I'm not welcome here, I'm going to just, kind of do my own thing, because I know that there's all these things happening, and the one that I can deal with here and the voices that I can amplify here that I'm closest to are Black people and Native Americans, right? So it's like, you can only handle what you can handle. You can't take on everyone's stuff. This harkens back to setting applicable boundaries and upholding your values, right? So when my values is like, I'm going to indulge in self-care and take care of myself by not taking on anything else that I'm not like directly connected to. Like, I don't have family in certain areas, but I'm definitely connected to where I'm at, and where I'm at needs my support, my resources, and to be amplified. So that's what I do. Like, I can't do something across seas because I don't have connections over there to really make a positive impact. Okay? So, echo chamber effect, filter bubble, algorithms reinforcing the illusion that everyone agrees with a certain stance. And that has been a hardcore thing that's happening right now. So there's a content creator that said some of the wrong things. And I understood the intent underneath, but it really came out bad. Okay. But then I looked through the comments, and that content creator was like, but yeah, I'm seeing all these people being malicious and, really bad people on this situation. And they're, literally like dancing on a person's grave. Let's say that. And that's kind of what they're being shown and stimulated with. And I'm sitting here going, I haven't seen any of that. What are you talking about? But I know from actually talking with a close friend of mine that there are people that are getting fed different information, different pieces of information. And some of that information may not be true, but they're believing it's true because it's coming from these forces that they used to trust in the past. And that is completely counter to what may or may not really be happening. And this is happening on all sides. I'm going to preface that again. This is happening on all sides. This isn't just happening to one group. It's happening on all sides in different ways with different information. Gaslighting, collective. I'm pretty sure if you've dealt with anybody with narcissistic tendencies, you are well versed in this. Manipulating individuals into doubting their perceptions. And this could be perceptions of risk or danger or of causing harm, or, like you post a video and someone tries like saying, oh, because you posted this video, you're automatically this and you did this and this and this. Actually, let me highlight something that happened really recently on a video that I posted where there is a content creator that is screaming for leaders and then, demeaning the leaders that are in a certain party and then being like, oh, well, I like these leaders, so that they're like pitting them against each other or pitting people that favor one or the other against each other. And so I called this individual out on like, hey, what are you trying to cause and create? Because division doesn't help anybody. And not sure, I guess you're going for this because this is not helping. This is not doing anything. This is causing more problems for people. And if you're purporting that you're trying to help things, you are doing exactly the opposite. And the person responded back, what do they say? They said something about like, oh, you're defending them and blah, blah, blah. Some red herring BS. And I'm like, I'm not sure where you got that from with your red herring, but I was criticizing the rhetoric of looking for leaders and the fact that you're causing division. So what were you trying to cause and create? Like, what are the results you're trying to create again? Because you didn't answer that question. Had I not the training that I have behind me, it took years. First I had a parental figure that had narcissistic tendencies, and then I jumped into a relationship which spans a decade with an individual that had narcissistic tendencies. And then I've taken more than a decade at this point, to heal from all of that backlog. It takes time. But within that, once again, I'm coming back to how you deal with this. You need to have your values set. You need to be focused, and you need to have self-trust. You also need to have discernment, and you need to have connections. You can't just be in a microcosm of yourself and be like, I know everything. No, you need to actually talk with people. You need to get out of your little bubble. You need to go to that space that may feel a little uncomfortable because maybe it's all like one side of people. And, there's a lot of rhetoric that might be, anti your skin tone or anti whatever. Just peek in. Just be unbiased and just be curious. See what they're saying. See what they're being exposed to. See how they're feeling about the situation. Get out of your bubble. Start peeking over that wall. Sometimes the wall is self-protection. And it's up to you to discern what is self-protection and what is self-care. Oftentimes when you're trying to protect yourself, I have a video called Citadel, which expounds on the fact that when you have these like very strict self-protection mechanisms, it's not about protecting yourself. It's more about imprisoning yourself. So self-care is different. Self-care is, I can only handle what I can handle, and I need to take care of myself at the end of the day. You're not putting up a barrier. You're not putting up a wall. You're not trying to, put up spikes around the perimeter to like keep people out. You're just like, I just need to take care of myself. That's it. It's not about like, I need to push everybody away. No, it's just, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to go to spa, go do this thing. That's the difference, right? Pushing away and just being. So hearkening back to the value system, knowing what you know and standing firm on embodying your values, no matter what. That is with you and God, if you believe in God. Okay. So that is building self-trust. When you have these values and you do your best to uphold the values and you're mindful of that, you're mindful of operating in the world according to your value system and you uphold these boundaries. Okay. So that's the antidote to gaslighting is you are very secure. You have your values right. You run checks on your behavior with these values. And you have self-trust, right? Like we will experience things that may not be real, especially if you're from trauma. Lord knows I have been in a trauma state, in the PTSD state or CPTSD state, where I read something from an individual that has, that I've considered has harmed me. And I completely warped it into something that it wasn't. I put a layer over it that was not there. And what I would do to get myself trained into more of a balanced state so that I wouldn't do these sort of hallucination things, trauma-born hallucinations, I would run it by someone who is completely not connected with it. And even though there may be passive-aggressive stuff, don't take bait on it. Don't take bait. So I would run it with someone else. And they would be like, yeah, no, this seems fine. This seems like this. Even if there is passive-aggressive stuff, I'm going to default to a neutral stance. And I'm going to respond based on that neutral stance. Because if I respond taking bait on a passive-aggressive behavior, guess who's going to look bad? Not the person who can't detect the passive-aggressive. I'm going to look bad because I'm reacting. I am not in control of my emotions when I am reacting. I am control when I take action and I stay or remain level-headed as much as possible and neutral as much as possible so that I can take effective, strategic action. I am in control of myself. They do not get to control me. I'm going to say that again. I am in control of myself. They do not get to control me. So when we react or act out of a space of fear or trauma, we are not in control. We are giving our control over to them. There's a lot of people falling for it because they don't actually know what it feels like when they start going into a fear state. So if you want to know more about that, I have some videos on the tube. So if you want to click into the profile, you can go check that out in the tube. I have several talks on it. And then one of them literally takes you into a trauma state and then gets you out of it. But part of those talks is like, I want to take you into this experience where you begin to recognize what is physiologically happening to you. So see how I'm like moving around and I'm, squirming right now? That is a state of like, oh, something's happening. Like I did that intentionally to like show you, okay, I'm starting to, get a little antsy. When you watch an action film, oftentimes either you or you can notice a person next to you, they're like, like they're squirming, they're sitting on the edge of the seat. They're like, intent. There's a little bit of change in their breathing. These are how we understand that we are in a different emotional state or something is happening with our body. So there is a little kick of adrenaline that happens when people are in that space. That's what makes movies so convincing. So the next time you watch a movie, start tapping into your body. A lot of times people disconnect from their body and they don't recognize what they're doing because they're absorbed with the movie. But if you can disassociate just a sliver and start being like, oh, I'm my shoulders are up. Oh, let's put them down. Start paying attention to these things, because when your shoulders are up, you're trying to protect your neck, right? So I probably was doing that unconsciously. That is a way you can catch yourself. Okay. That is a fear state. Like, I am protecting my neck. This is how we have like the shoulder, the burdens, the shoulder or shouldering, like the burdens of the world. We're taking on other energy and we're trying to protect ourselves, right? There's different things that we do that show that we are going into this emotional state. That is emotional intelligence. Yay! So the more that we connect with that, the more that we can be in control of ourselves, because a lot of people are out of control. A lot of people do not have self-mastery. So these are the primers and the basic things to begin to adapt into your life or to bring into your life. Paying attention to your body, to what is happening physically to you. Go into, an action film and see what's happening. Go into a scary film and see what's happening. Are you laughing? Is it like more of a nervous laughter, or is it a genuine laughter? Like, some of those movies are very hokey. So yeah, it might be a genuine laughter, but some people do nervous laughter. So are you doing a real laugh, or is it kind of like, and your body is going back because you're trying to withdraw from what's happening? Pay attention to these things. Get curious, like, oh, what am I doing right now? Why are my shoulders creeping up again? Oh, okay. What am I trying to protect myself from? Why is this happening? So the other aspect is your value system. I'm going to drum this in so people get it. Have your value system. Do not blur the lines on your value system. If you blur the lines on your value system, come back, reconnect with it, catch yourself on it, and move forward again. Catching yourself on it is what you have to do to be able to break the chains of what others are trying to put you into. Okay. So, misinformation cascade or information cascade. This is an information overwhelm. Once again, same word for the same, or different word for the same subject matter, right? Like, people are being beamed specific things of information. Sometimes that's to erode your sense of self-trust, to get you feeling insecure. Feeling insecure is connected with feeling unsafe. So if you are feeling unsafe, you are feeling insecure. Those are very synonymous with each other. Okay. So regain your sense of safety first, and you can begin to feel secure. Your sense of safety can start with physical behavior. I do also have a meditation on the tube where you just got to place your feet on the ground. Taking a deep breath. If you are watching this right now, connect with the fact that you are safe. If you are able to witness and experience this podcast, this live right now, you're safe. Doesn't matter what's going on in the world. Don't let it get through your sense of safety or security. Because once that erodes, you are lost. You are lost in that emotional response. And that emotional response is a hormonal response. You have cortisol going on, which affects you in a multitude of different ways. It affects your ability to think. You can look up the term lizard brain. It is a psychological term that when you are in a fight or flight state, the last thing you're going to be able to do is to think. So get yourself as out of that state as you can as possible. Hi, Alex. Welcome. So to recap on the things that you can do so far that I've laid out, establish your sense of safety and security. Deep breath. Are you watching this? Are you experiencing this right now? Are you able to sit and scroll on a feed? Great, you're safe. You need to reinstill that within your body, within your understanding, no matter what's happening in the world. Where am I at right now? I'm at home. Cool. Are there bombs going off? Am I like in any dire danger at the moment? No. Okay, I'm good. I can relax. I'm safe. Really get that through to your core. Okay, wherever you are at, you are safe. Be safe first and foremost. If you feel unsafe, okay, how are you going to handle it? If you're already like, you're not going to be able to handle anything. All right. Value system, have your core key values set up and established. Do not blur the lines on them. If you blur the lines on them, come reconnect to them, reestablish it. But you need to call yourself on these things, and then don't shame, blame, or be hard on yourself. Just be like, oh, I missed that. Okay. Let's pay attention to when I'm in that state again, or when this thing happens again, or when an external circumstance out of my control happens. I'm going to stick by my values no matter what. Be present with your values. And then the other one is pay attention to what your body's doing. Right? I acted that earlier, like my shoulders went up when I got like animated. Pay attention to what your body is doing and then connect with that, and then reorient your body into a different way so that you are in control and that you can guide yourself in the way that you need to and not let others control you. All right. I'm going to go on with this list because there are so many things that are just, there's so many words for the same thing. So I'm just rattling it off. Information, already did astroturfing, and spiral of silence. Individuals stay quiet about concerns if they think their view is unpopular, reinforcing groupthink stuff and paradigms. Don't stay silent. Speak up. Speak up, speak up, speak up. Like, it is crazy how many times I've been the one to be like, I don't care who you are, I care how you are, and I will lay it down. And yes, I've done this to some of the major tech pros that are behind a lot of stuff. And it's not from a place, see, cut myself again, right? So it's not from a place of like, I'm going to tone police you. I'm going to police you. No, it's from a place of like, I'm concerned about this situation. You're not looking at these aspects, which could put you into more harm. And, with one guy, I was just like, I'm not a fan. They post a lot of fear, doom and gloom stuff online. And I am very counter to that. I'm all about personal empowerment and standing up for disempowered people and understanding the situation so that they don't happen again. But if you're perpetuating doom and gloom without any solution, or if you're like trying to pitch your solution through using doom and gloom, that's terrible. That's what I dislike about the coaching industry. So, point blank told this person to their own ears I was not a fan, because they got on this platform and was like, hello, my fans. And I'm like, we're done. We're done. I'm a mutual. I roll on, one of my values is respect. So that line was blurred, and I was very upfront, like, I am not a fan. I'm not a fan. And they're like, oh, well, I can vouch here. We have mutual friends. And one of the people came on and was like, well, I vouch for this individual. And I'm like, yeah, that's nice. We have a difference of values, though. Well, what value is it? You had to be there. But that's the way to get through to people. It's like, we just have a difference of values. It's not about them. It's about your value system and upholding that. And when you run off that premise, you have the space to be diplomatic. You have the space to be respectful. Yeah, we're just not values aligned. Okay. Like, what else are they going to do? I'm like, I can give you a chance. There's a chance that anybody can make changes in their lives to be a better person, especially if they're dealing with a lot of fear. It's a matter of like practice. It's a matter of getting out of, these fear states and managing things like, PTSD with care, like doing self-care. participating in the care that is available to you so that you can heal from these things. These changes can happen, and that was one of the things that I ended with. I'm like, this could always change. Like, this isn't just a hard and fast thing, but I'm not going to get into like the details of this. I don't need to. I'm not here to force that person or coerce them. That is against my values, which are like helping people to establish and create their own identity. So at the end of the day, all of these different things, all of these different options to work out of these situations of people trying to push, pull, corral you, trying to warp your sense of space and reality, you can defy all of that. You can defy all of that by knowing who you are, by having your identity set and solid. But it takes time, it takes work, it takes emotional mastery, it takes self-mastery, it takes self-care, it takes understanding what matters and what doesn't matter. It takes all of these things together. So all I can say is take the time to do a lot of these actions that I have stated over and over again. I'm just not top of mind right now. So feel free to watch the replay on the tube, because I've been going for about an hour almost, but there's a lot that's available to you, including the Resilience Journal that I created. Link will be around wherever platform you're watching this on, or if you're watching the replay, you'll find it in the comments. And then for those who are watching on the other app, you'll find it in the clickety-click section of my bio. But check that out. Like, it is accessible to everybody. If you need to print it out yourself, that's fine. That is the cheapest option. You can get that on my website. But there are ways through. But you have to master yourself first. And once you master yourself, you can become a walker of the worlds. You can go into different worlds and you can understand what's happening there, and you can connect with people and actually make a difference. It's not easy. It's not. But I wanted to share this today because people need to get there. There's a lot more happening. There's a lot more that I want to share on. But I'll save it for later. So thank you all for joining. If I'm going to end the stream on the tube right now, I wish you all a good one. Thank you for watching and engaging and learning. And I will be on the Clock app if you want to come over there. If you are on the tube of you, head over to the Clock app. And it is under my name, so you'll find me there. All right.